All right, welcome to the next episode of the Rap Thought Podcast. And today we're going to be talking about Frank Ocean.
Yeah, we threw this album on just because over the years I've always heard about how it's, I don't know if I would say an essential album, but it's, some people are, it sounds like it's a classic. It's an album that you should hear. When we went, one of the last times we went to the last record store, they had it on, essential albums for $9.99 or something like that. I was like, oh, Frank Ocean's there. I've been hearing a lot about this album. It's time to hear it and listen to it.
Yeah. I've always heard about it. I mean, before we get into it, we are called the Rap Thought Podcast, but I don't think Frank Ocean is too far removed from being connected with hip hop enough where we couldn't talk about this album.
Not at all.
I think it's close enough related, and obviously he has numerous rappers featured on this album. So I think it definitely fits into the vein of what we're doing with the Rap Thought Podcast.
Definitely. I mean, and even still we can rebel, do whatever we want.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's just, but I mean, it was just such a deep curiosity for this album that without doing this podcast, I don't know if I would have. It's always been on my mind, but this has now forced me to listen to it. So
it's interesting because I think I'm in the exact same boat as you, where I've always heard about people talking about this album. I've always heard people loving this album. It's gotten a lot of praise from everyone, not even hip hop fans, or R&B fans. Like everyone loves this album. But I was never curious enough to actually listen. I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I was like, I'll get around to it, but now I'm around to it.
And obviously doing this podcast, and you suggested this album, I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm definitely excited to dig into this. How familiar were you with like Odd Future?
I'm familiar with Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt. I know those cats, but can't say that I've listened to a lot of people outside of Tyler the Creator.
Right.
So it's hard to say I know that they have a show. I know they did some things. I know they all musically involved.
I knew about Odd Future pretty early on, but I didn't know that Frank Ocean was part of Odd Future for a long time.
And after listening to this album, I'm curious to listen to their previous stuff to see where Frank Ocean was, because even in their show, I don't see Frank Ocean fitting in with their stuff.
I think
that makes it more interesting.
I think Odd Future gave Frank Ocean the space to be completely free with his creativity and with his art. Like they created that space for him. So in that sense, it made sense why he would be around them, because they always made their own type of music. They never tried to fit in with anything. They created their own lane. And it definitely seems like Frank Ocean wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, with all that said, of like Odd Future and everything, and looking into Frank Ocean, like, of course, I'm curious about what does Channel Orange mean? I mean, we just did Below the Heavens. We got to, that made sense why it's called that. Return of the Boom Bap, it makes sense why it's called that. But I have to say, I'm not entirely clear on why this is called Channel Orange. So
I didn't know either. And my girlfriend, who she really likes this album, and she's been listening to it, and she would ask me, she knew I was doing this album for the podcast, and she asked me, like, what does the album title mean? She'd always ask me, like, what does that mean after I listened to it? I'm like, I still don't know. I don't know what Channel Orange means. I took a guess that, like, orange is the color of the music that came out of this album. I didn't know what the channel part meant.
Yeah, and so I thought it was, in terms of channel, I didn't know, because I mean the album cover is just orange and it says Channel Orange, and so I didn't know if it was like channeling something, like you need to channel this type of energy, so let's channel this orange energy. So it's kind of how I interpreted it. So I was like, okay, I'm interested to see what this album is about, because I'm wondering if it represents what orange may be, and to channel that type of energy. So the first thing, because we both kind of looked into our own things, but I mean, I had to look up in psychology, each color kind of defines something different. So yellow and red typically goes with fast food. So if you think of Burger King, you think of McDonald's, you think of Wendy's, you can even think of the Houston Rockets. But with those colors in psychology, it makes you think of food. It makes you think of fast food because that's what they're generally combined with. So I looked up what the color orange represents, and it was saying that orange is the color of joy and creativity. Orange promotes a sense of general wellness and emotional energy that should be shared, such as compassion, passion, and warmth. Orange will help a person recover from disappointments, a wounded heart, or a blow to one's pride. And so throughout the album, there's parts of that in there. There's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of wounded hearts. So, whether or not that has to do with that, I can personally, because, music is in the eye of the beholder, I would say. Like, I can see it relating to this a little bit. So it helped make sense to me, I guess, of why he may have chosen the color orange.
And then, so starting with the intro, we hear a TV sound and then the PlayStation sound.
That took me back. I was like, "Ooh, I haven't heard that
Yeah,
sound."
I know, right? Because we grew up with the PlayStation 1 and hearing that every time you started it up, and it's a cool sound to hear again.
Yeah.
But obviously, when we look deeper in and we look up what the intro meant, basically it was Frank Ocean. It's called Channel Orange because he's taking us through different channels of his life, and we're gonna see them. And I think what you said about orange, I think is spot on for what he's trying to convey with his album. Just the meaning behind orange and what it represents. I think my guess is that he pictured orange when he made this album. Like that would be the color associated with the music.
Right. Yeah, and in creating music comes creativity, which is also defined in that. Compassion, you see that in there. You see the passion in his work in doing this. He was involved with a lot of the production in this album. So, I think it encapsulates a lot of the stuff that you see and hear in this album. So,
yep.
Yeah, hopping in. As Matt was saying, I really liked the throwback to the PlayStation startup. That made me happy. I was happy to hear that. First track is thinking about you, and it made me think of a breakup, and it's like the person comes over to try to reconcile and talk about things.
Right.
And perhaps Frank Ocean was upset in the beginning. It's like this, it looks like a tornado ran through here. It doesn't usually look like this. But when I'm thinking of you, this type of stuff happens. And then, then the person's saying, you don't love me. And it's like, well, if you believe that, I have a beachside house in Idaho that I can sell you. I really like that line.
That was a funny line. It's like a tongue in cheek.
Yeah, there's no beach access in Idaho, so if anyone offers you a house like that, don't take it.
Right.
So
don't get that timeshare.
Don't do it. But I thought that was an interesting song. It's weird because if you read the lyrics in an R&B album, if you read lyrics, it's very short. But obviously it's a little longer when you actually hear the song. But I thought that was an interesting take of the.
Yeah, I mean, even just starting off with the song, his lyrics are very simple. But when he's singing it, you might not catch everything, but when you read it, it's very direct and simple to understand.
Right.
But when you're listening it, you might get caught up with the music and might miss a line, or kind of you have to try to catch where he's going with it, because the instrumentals are so good.
Yeah,
the production behind the music is really good.
Yeah, and we'll definitely touch on that again too. But throughout, I like the production on every single track. I would be down to get the instrumentals for this album.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the production on this is incredible. But yeah, I think he is a good singer. I mean, starting off with this song, he goes really into high pitch, a falsetto that it sounds good. He's a good singer. He knows how to hit the notes.
He has a lot of range. It's more, I feel like with him, it's more if you like his voice or not. But whether or not you do or you don't, the talent is still there of what he can hit, what he can do. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so he starts off with, a track thinking about his ex, wanting to get back with her, wondering if she still loves him, and feeling, a little, feeling down.
Right.
Not having what he wants.
It does not start you off at a high point.
Right.
And then it transitions to Fertilizer, which is, nothing to do with poop, whatever. But then goes into Sierra Leone. And this one was interesting because, when you hear something multiple times, you start wondering about it. So Sierra Leone, familiar with diamonds and everything, and the war that they had. But, Jay-Z and Kanye West, I feel like they bring it up all the time. And when in looking into this, I didn't realize that Diamonds Are Forever by Kanye West, it was on Late Registration. I didn't realize that won a Grammy. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, that's cool. So I really like the remix with Jay-Z coming on. But anyways, we're talking Frank Ocean. But it was, I like the song, and like I said, it just had me thinking, like, okay, well, what's the significance of Sierra Leone? Why are so many people rapping about it? But the song talks about him messing around with a girl. They're doing teenager things and everything, but then there's a voice in the back of his head, it's like, dude, you gotta get out of there. But being a teenager, he's just like, nah, this is too good. I can't leave.
Yeah.
But she ends up getting pregnant, and then it's cool because I don't know if you would want to stigmatize hip hop with this, but a lot of artists will talk about how, hey, my mom had me at a young age, my dad cut out, I never saw him again. But in the end of this song, he's talking about helping get his daughter ready for bedtime. So he's active in her life, singing her a lullaby and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool.
This song, for me, really fits into the theme of the album. And the theme to me was, I feel like all the songs, he's trying to portray that point in your life between being a teenager and becoming an adult. It's like that transition period from teenager into going into your early 20s of, you fall in love really easily and you're longing for that. You want to know what that's like. And then it goes into this song, Sierra Leone, and he mentions being a teenager, we don't have a lot of money. We still live with our parents, but we feel like we're coming into our own and we feel like we know who we are, but maybe we don't.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that transition period of, we don't always make the best decisions. In this whole album, he talks a lot about drugs, sex, doing different things that you do as a teenager, a young person.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I like how the album also talks about, being young, making dumb decisions, but also just the ignorance from the world, but also still being being in tune, but being in your own world. So like with Sweet Life, I like his reference of why have the world when you're at the beach? And I kind of like that because there's a lot of people that they're comfortable in their bubble. They're comfortable doing what they do. So yeah, like I don't need the world. I got the beach right here. This is cool.
Right.
So I like things like that, and how this person and making a Matrix reference, which also could be synonymous with taking, because it's talking about drug use. So the reference of taking the blue pill, it could be ecstasy, or it could be in reference to the Matrix, where the blue pill is the one that will keep you in what you're doing.
Right.
You won't remember Morpheus, and you can just continue on doing what you're doing. So, and that's another one I looked up too, because it said that. So we were saying I was interested about Sierra Leone. It is saying that Sierra Leone is is one of the things it's known for is its pink skies. So, but then it has a very interesting history to it too. So with that, it's like there's your pink sky that you're focusing on, but you're not really worried about the rest of what Sierra Leone is known for, and reference kind of relating it to that. But it also, I think it also mentioned in this song just like the satellite, how there's a satellite and you're getting some transmission, but you're not getting a whole lot. So she's in tune with the world, but still living in her own bubble. So that's why, like, I'm going to take this blue pill because I like it, but I'm not really going to go fully into the Matrix at all. So that's where I came from that, but I can see that. But I thought that was interesting. But I thought these tracks 4, 5, and 6, so we just talked about Sweet Life, but also with Not Just Money, which is more of an interlude, and then going into Super Rich Kids, they are all kind of the same. Because in my rendition of Sweet Life, where, you know, this girl has everything that she wants in the palm of her hand, doesn't need to go anywhere else, it transitions to Not Just Money, which in short is there's happiness. There's more to life than money. There's happiness.
Right.
You know, you don't need all this to be happy. You can be whatever you want. And then going to Super Rich Kids, because now it's like, well, there's happiness, but then here's what it is when you are super rich. These kids, they are tuned out of the real world. They're going for joyrides in Daddy's Jag. They're just popping pills. They're having a great time. They don't care what's going on. They don't care about consequences. They just do whatever they want. Did you get the feel that one of them died in the end? Because it mentioned how, like, being, I think the second verse, he was talking about being on the rooftops. And then...
Right, and he says...
The last verse, kind of like, maybe I'm adding this, but feeling the breeze until you finally go crash. So it could be a metaphor for, like, hey, I'm on top of the world, I'm doing all this stuff, I feel great, but then all of a sudden I get in trouble and it all comes back to me. Or just being so caught up in drugs and having a great time that you accidentally kill yourself because you have no fear of consequences.
I don't know if he took it that far, but just maybe realizing that, hey, this isn't probably the best thing to do with my life. But Super Rich Kids was a really cool song for me. I really enjoyed it. I thought I interpreted it as he's not the rich kid.
Right.
Neither is what's his name, Earl Sweatshirt, who's featured on it. I interpreted it as they're living in LA, like Frank Ocean moved to LA, and now he's around all these people who are rich, and he's around young people his age who are super rich, and they have money that you really most people don't have at that age.
Ratty ass.
Because of their parents, and so he's going to their parents' houses and hanging out with them and spending time and seeing what that life is like and commenting on it, and it's pretty relatable to me. I grew up in Southern California, and I had friends who were extremely wealthy. I remember, not even my friends, just people, I just got invited to a party, and I went to their house. I went to a house in Calabasas, and they lived a couple of doors down from Derek Fisher and other celebrities that lived in the area, the Kardashians. And you go to this house, and it's ultra luxurious. And there's no parents there. It's like just a bunch of kids partying, doing drugs, drinking, doing whatever they want. And they have this massive house. So unlimited alcohol, and do whatever you want. And it's a weird environment to be in. It's not like, it doesn't feel right. It's cool to go there and party because I'm young, I'm a teenager. It's fun to be there. But afterwards, you're kind of like, that's kind of a weird thing to be a part of. Like, we're just kids. Like, this isn't us. Like, this isn't what we're supposed to be around.
Yeah, and that definitely hits on the track too, because they're talking about, like, there's no parents, there's no
there's no supervision.
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, you can afford all the drugs that you want. You know, when he says too many bottles of wine we can't pronounce, rich people have wine cellars. They have all these amazing wines from France or Italy, whatever. Too many bullets of that green, no Lucky Charms. So unlimited amounts of weed.
Right. It's on tap, and you can just do whatever you want.
The maids, the parents don't come around. The maids are there cleaning up after all the kids.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Too many joyrides in Daddy's Jaguar. Like, it's funny because, like, I've seen that. Like, what he's talking about, I've seen it, and I've been around it, and it's a cool song. I was laughing a lot when I first heard it.
Yeah. And, you know, to feed off of all this drug use and everything, you know, I don't know if it does this intentionally, but you can almost think of maybe these super rich kids becoming these next two tracks in Pilot Jones and in Crack Rock. Pilot Jones, well, no, not Pilot Jones, which is the next track, but it's because when you're jonesing, that means you're really itching for something. You really want this. If we all remember Space Jam, we have a basketball Jones because we have that itch, that desire to play basketball. So in this track, he's just talking about being in love with this girl And I want to, down the line, relate that to Bad Religion. So I'll come back to this song.
This goes along again with the theme of being young and in love. Like you fall in love really easily, and you know, a girl that you meet as a teenager, you can become really enthralled with them and kind of lose yourself with them without really like taking a step back and be like, whoa, what am I?
Oh yeah,
is this a person that I really want to be falling in love with? It's kind of, you just dive into it.
Yeah, man, she's the one. I mean, at 14, she's the one.
Right.
So, I mean, we've been there. But yeah, I mean, you're right though. Like, especially when you're young, you don't have any. There's no other reference. You have no other experience. Like, you're just getting the hormones running and racing. Everything is like, yeah, I'm in love with this girl, and so I got that Pilot Jones for her and this and that. Kind of an interesting transition to crack rock, where, you know, it's maybe going off of Super Rich Kids, where when you are addicted and too far in, you become exiled and not doing well, and just didn't really work out.
Yeah, he's telling a story of someone who's addicted to crack and you know, being almost a victim of their environment and what they're around. It talks a little bit about what we've discussed before with previous albums, like Return of the Boom Bap and Tupacalypse Now, where he's in this environment, you know, with crooked cops, no good for the, he says, crooked cop, dead cop, no good for the community, fucking pig gets shot, 300 men will search for me. So he's kind of pointing out, you know, there's cops, you know, who aren't really, they're not doing what they should be doing. They're not serving justice. They're, you know, planting drugs on me, or they're trying to, they illegally search me, or whatever they do. They're not there to look out for me. They're not there for the community.
Right, for sure. And I was thinking like, oh man, this all sounds familiar, but it's because I was thinking of the track Lost, and so we can definitely, Pilot Jones will bring us to Lost. Crack rock will bring us back to, or I meant to say that the other way around. But anyways, Pyramids was probably my second favorite track on the album. I really liked when the beat develops and goes into that. And it's a 10-minute track, and you know, and understanding it, it takes a lot of time to really get it. But I liked it. I thought it was cool how you know, he starts off with, you know, this is Cleopatra. We're together. We're gods. We're riding high. We're great. But then, and how like the pyramids are our temple. This is our castle. This is where we're respected. Look at the chandeliers. We have it all. But then Cleopatra ends up cheating on him and whatnot. But then it comes into modern times to where she's still with the person who she cheated on Frank with, but she's a different type of Cleopatra. She's a Cleopatra that's going into a pyramid, earning money. This made me think of Vegas and going into the MGM Grand, I think is the pyramid.
No, that the Luxor.
The Luxor, my bad.
Yeah.
But going to the Luxor and earning money there, pyramid. So maybe it's not a direct reference to that, but I was like, oh, Vegas, like.
Right, he definitely puts that image out there of being in an environment like Vegas with strip clubs and things like that. Right,
and it's just, you know, she kind of going down on that a couple pegs where it's like we were great, we had it all, but now like you stoop so low that this is the pyramid that you have now, where this is where you're stripping and.
I agree with you. This was one of my favorite tracks on the album. Me personally, I love long songs, especially if it's good throughout the song and there's a beat change in this and it kind of keeps you engaged.
Right.
I love this song. I didn't quite get the message right away when I first learned it or heard it, but I really enjoyed the beat. I enjoyed the singing. And then once I figured out what the song was about, I enjoyed it even more.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great song. I think it's cool because he's not following any kind of formula for this song.
No.
He kind of does his own thing.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I like the transition. I like the content. I liked the production. Yeah, it was all really good. I really liked it. But now with Lost, like that kind of goes back into crack rock because it's talking about this girl that he's with or someone's with that's just so far into the drug game that it's hard to get her out of it. She's, one of the lyrics it says, at some point I will have her cooking for the family. So you get this sense of like, I'm hoping that she'll turn around.
Right.
But she's so deep in that by the end of the song, it doesn't sound like it ever happens. But it just made me think of crack rock.
He's telling a story of like, he's using his girlfriend to help him move drugs, to help him deal drugs and get the drugs where he needs them to go, having her cook the drugs for him. So yeah, it's a really, I mean, it's kind of a heavy song, and there's a lot of heavy themes in this album. There's some lighthearted things like with Rich Kids, and then there's some like crack rock in this song. It's a little bit heavier topics that are a little bit more sad or melancholy.
Yeah, that's cool. And then White was an instrumental. Just kind of slid into the DMs of Monks. Monks was interesting because, as I mentioned before, I don't necessarily like overly descriptive songs. But I think it depends on the artist. There's some artists where if I really like you, it's like, yeah, I'm going to go through this over and over again, so I'm going to decipher this. Frank Ocean's a new artist to me. So I'm not quite there yet. So when I first listened to something, I was like, no, I just want to know what maybe that's what it is. Like, I just want to know what you're about. So like, I don't want to have to decipher through all this stuff to see if I like you. Like I need, that's what it is. Once I like you, then we can go through all that stuff. But, from the most part, I got that he was hooking up with the groupie that wasn't, she's on a tour. It sounded like she's on a tour of her own. So he's like, yeah, we can do this. And she's just like, nah, like I like fuck boys and bands or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And, this is just me. I'm on my own agenda.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, he goes back into, like, kind of more of a lighthearted song, like tongue-in-cheek or whatever. But, yeah, he's talking about a girl. He's comparing groupies that follow a band or a singer or whatever, follows an artist, to every show. And he's comparing that to monks or Buddhists that follow the Dalai Lama. Wherever he goes, they follow. And then he's like, when they mosh, like when punk rockers, they're at a concert, they mosh pit. I think he was saying like they're moshing. That's like the groupies way. They're having sex when they're moshing.
Yeah.
So they're going into a mosh pit with the artist, the person that they're following. I thought it was a really interesting comparison.
Yeah,
it was cool. I mean, I think that's really creative.
Yeah, it was a deep one because I was like, oh, monks, like it. But that makes sense, like as a religious following that there's like the Grateful Dead, people following them and doing everything. So it's like that makes sense. It's just an interesting reference that I haven't heard. Eminem calls his followers stans. Things like that. I was like, oh, monks, because they're but that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, one of the cool lines in this song is. Planning a runaway, young at heart, you found a boyfriend and now you want to get away. Just a virgin lover on a getaway. I think that was an interesting line. He's kind of referencing like with Buddhist and Hindu, with relating it to Indian culture where kind of your marriage is planned. It's chosen, your partner is chosen for you, and you're kind of just, that's what you have to do. And he's saying in this, like this girl, she has a boyfriend and she, her life is kind of planned out. She's going to be with him and have kids and do whatever. And she's rebelling against that. Like she wants to get away from that. She wants to live her own life. And the easiest way for her to do that is just be a groupie and just follow someone else and sleep with whoever she wants and go around and be with whoever she wants.
Yes, and escape. It works.
Right.
But speaking of monks, going into track 13 of Bad Religion, I liked this. There were a couple different layers and themes to this song that I really liked. An odd one is I like how he hops in the taxi And it's like, this is gonna be my therapy session. Run the meter, take whatever turns you need to do, but I need your time. And so I was kind of like, oh, I'm wondering if someone drunk has ever done that before. That's a kind of a cool idea. Like, you're paying this person to listen to you.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool. But I like how he says, just in general, that in his opinion, a bad religion is one that brings you to your knees. So this is a love song. So he's talking about being in love with this girl, but it's basically it feels like a cult following because he's so in love with her, and whether she knows it or she just doesn't reciprocate it, it's affecting him because he loves her, he worships her, it's bringing him to his knees. And bringing someone to their knees is synonymous for like weakness in a sense, one of the things for that. So it's like it brings him to his knees, it cripples him. And I just thought that was kind of cool altogether. Like, this is a bad religion. It's making me crazy. I'm not in the best space right now. I'm in this taxi. I need someone to hear me out. Just drive and I'll pay the meter. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So, and I also really liked the beat on that one. I thought that was cool. So I liked that track.
Yeah, it's a cool song. I really like the themes in it, and kind of like you said, relating religion to being in love. You almost get blinded by it. You have a tunnel vision and you can't really see outside of what you're focusing on. So like with religion, it's like if you get so engulfed with it, you're not going to see anything else. You're not going to see any other perspectives. So being in love, like especially young love, like you're definitely have your blinders on and you're just seeing a tunnel.
Right.
And that's the only person you see in your life.
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's for him, he describes it as a cult following because he's the only one in it. And he puts her on that high of a pedestal, just like anyone else following someone that's very deep into their religion. So I like that. I like the layers. I like the themes. I thought that was cool. Maybe I will one of these days get a Uber drive to just somewhere.
And just talk.
Spout my problems. So it's like, oh, that's cool. So Pink Matter, Matthew. Well, I feel like there's a lot of stuff on that one. And I had to read on this part, but in the beginning where he's talking about, the mangoes, the peach, the things that I could sell of you, I think it was. I don't know why I had to read on that. It just didn't come to me, but it's like, it hints at prostitution of putting her out and selling her for certain things. Melons being breasts, peaches being the nether regions of the South. So I just thought that was interesting. And I saw a lot of philosophical questions in this song of what is my brain for? Is it because the brain has gray matter, which is part of what makes us think. But then asking, it's like, what is our brain for? Is it just gray matter? What is it? What's the purpose of it? But then asking the next line is, what is a woman for? Is she just pink matter? Which is insinuating, like, is she just an object? Is she just a container for your child? Like, what is she? What is her purpose in a sense? And I thought that was interesting to objectifying someone.
And then he relates the woman's vagina to cotton candy, and it's like sweet, and it's like you crave it and you want it, but is that all it is to you? Is it just candy to you?
He also relates it to Majin Buu. And I don't know if you're familiar with... Oh, it's a Dragon Ball Z.
Educate me.
It's a Dragon Ball Z reference.
Okay.
But Majin Buu is supposed to be made out of bubble gum, basically.
Okay.
Which bubble gum is... Well, Justin Timberlake does a song on strawberry bubble gum, which is, eating certain things. So... But yeah, so that's what I got out of that. But then it kind of goes in another direction too. Like, what if the sky isn't necessarily there and that's just alien? It's just a blanket that aliens look through to observe us. And I was like, oh, okay, that's deep. Oh, that was interesting. But I also liked, it was kind of anytime the Andre 3000 pops up at a track is always refreshing. It's always nice.
Yeah, it's always a treat.
It's always really nice. When he showed up
Yeah,
on
I mean,
Anderson
especially
.Paak,
since it doesn't happen very often.
right.
So
He showed up on Anderson .Paak's album. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and here it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That's cool too. So, but yeah, in his verse, he's just talking about falling in love with a girl and how it didn't work out, but he was really impressed by her and stuff. So it kind of goes into, I don't know, kind of goes against what Frank was saying at the beginning of like questioning all these things, but then, hey, like I actually really like this girl.
yeah, Andre seems a little more secure with what he wants. And obviously Andre is much older than Frank Ocean at this point.
Right.
You know, so he's going to be coming from his perspective.
Yeah.
And I like the line that Andre 3000 says. He says, "Who needs another friend? I need to hold your hand. You need no other man. We'd flee to other lands." Basically,
Wow.
you know, he wants that girl that doesn't want anyone else, that only wants to be with him, and they can just basically Andre 3000 is saying he wants a woman he can travel with and live anywhere with, and she'll be with him. And she's gonna hold his hand through everything.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, like in other albums we've talked about where, like Below the Heavens, you were saying one track, it didn't really fit in with what the rest of the album was conveying. I almost want to say Forrest Gump is like that, but because we were talking earlier about how these are different channels of Frank's mind that we're going through, it can be, it doesn't necessarily have to fit. And I only say that because we've mentioned how there's a couple songs that almost go, that relate to each other. So, you know, I said earlier that tracks 4, 5, and 6, Sweet Life, Not Just Money, Super Rich Kids, they kind of go together.
Yeah.
Crack Rock and Lost kind of go together. But Forrest Gump is him, I'm trying to think, like, it's him singing about a crush that he had for another man. And so the only reason I say that it almost doesn't fit is because all other 14 tracks have to do with women.
Right, and the woman's body part, her womb.
Yeah, and then you have this track thrown in about a man. And so that's just where I'm like, okay, like on another album that wouldn't fit, but in terms of Channel Orange and we're looking at different thoughts and stuff, it's like, okay, like this can fit here. This is fine. But
Right.
I guess maybe it would be better for me if it were referenced in other tracks as well too, and it's like, because it comes off as random for me.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah, I think that's why it is the last track, or like, you know, at the end of the album, because it does kind of take you to a completely different channel than what we were on before.
Right. And what I was reading too is that it's obviously it has a lot of references to Forrest Gump, because when you're listening to the track, you're like, oh, number 44, the jersey. It's like, but you weren't in Forrest Gump. But it's supposed to be through Jenny's perception
Right.
of, you know, just her take, but in reference to a crush that he had going back to a post from Tumblr. That's what I was reading into that. So I think I remember when this album dropped, there was some static about Forrest Gump. It was like, oh my God, he's talking about a gay relationship. Oh my God. And I don't know, like listening to it now, it's like, so? Like,
Right. I think when people are shocked about something, it's going to create more buzz.
Yeah.
And for an emerging artist, when he's first coming out, I can see how there'd be more buzz. But compared to like now, it's like this is years ago. This is what, 8 years ago when this album came out.
Yeah, Katy Perry kissed a girl. Like, I wonder how that would be. You know, we were all like, "Oh my God, she kissed a girl and she's talking about it." I wonder what the reaction would be in 2020.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So maybe that's just 20. But I mean, even when this came out years ago, I don't think I was like, "Oh my God, he's talking about kissing a man. What's going on?"
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think
matter.
today would matter.
I don't think today would matter at all. But it was a good song.
Yeah.
So
I enjoyed it. I think I really enjoyed this whole album. It's a great album to put on like a Sunday morning, just to throw it on, Or do we have one more track to go to?
It was End, but it
yeah,
was kind of just like closing out.
Right, just the outro. But yeah, and just speaking about the album as a whole, it's a cool album to not even dive into like we're doing, just to have it on the background because of the production and the singing. Like, it's great. You don't even have to really like dive deep into the lyrics to know what he's talking about to enjoy this album.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty low key. It's definitely a low key good album to have. Like, I would play this in the background if I had people over and just like a kickback and we were just eating some food and just kind of chilling. It'd be good background.
When this album came out, I can see how people were so enthralled by it and why so many people connected with it, especially younger people. This album is definitely directed at 25 to 15-year-olds.
I can see that. I agree with that, especially with just the generation of being more open to things and going through these. A lot of these things are that are not exclusive to one person. It's open to anybody.
Yeah.
Everyone's experienced. I put money that someone has experienced at least 5 of the things that have happened in this album.
Right.
But mostly it's just falling.
If you heard this album back when it came out, how do you think you would feel about it?
Back when it came out?
Yeah, 2012?
I would most likely say that it would be too slow for my taste. I would be looking for, I would want some beats, I would want some like excitement, I want something to nod my head to.
A little more upbeat. Yeah. I mean, Pyramids had that. It was a little more upbeat.
Pyramids had that, but that's one track out of 17, and so I wouldn't have looked into this album a whole lot. But as it was gaining traction, that's what made me curious. I have to say, if it didn't have the acclaim that it had, I don't think we would be reviewing this album today.
Yeah, this has incredible acclaim. And I don't know, I don't think I would have liked it as much when it first came out because I wasn't really checking out R&B as much.
Right.
And soul. So I don't know if this album would have connected with me back then when it first came out. And listening to it now after hearing so many people rave about it, I'm kind of like, it was a good album. I don't know if it's life-changing or genre-breaking or, I don't know if it did anything that, changed the landscape of music like a lot of people say it has, but...
Yeah, and that's I 100% agree with that. Like, I'm not disappointed. Like when someone builds something up and you're like, okay, that really wasn't even that great. Right. Like, I feel like this was moderately built up, but I don't feel disappointed in listening to it. I'm just more asking genuinely, like, well, what did you guys like about it that was so great? But that invites the listeners too. Like, hit us up on social media now. Maybe tell us we're wrong. Say it was great. Definitely open to hear any and all suggestions about that. Because, like we're saying, we're not saying it's bad. I just don't think it's amazing. But I enjoy listening to it.
We'll definitely do more R&B albums in the future and maybe some new ones that come out. So you'll be able to get an understanding more of our palette for music like this, because we've mostly been doing rap albums.
Yeah, but with this album though, I could see myself buying the instrumental for it, because I think I enjoyed the production more than I enjoyed the story.
It's funny, he had John Mayer featured on a lot of the tracks.
Yeah, at least 3, I believe. And so cool. that was really cool. And then I think Andre 3000 did the guitar for Pink Matter.
Wow.
I believe
that's
too.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, but overall, it was cool. Didn't feel like I wasted my time listening.
I would definitely bump this like by myself if I'm just driving, or if Sunday morning I just want to throw something on. I would definitely bump it for other people. Like you said, if you're just hanging out at home and you want to throw an album on and you have people over, it's a cool album to put on.
Yeah. That's all I got, sir.
Yeah. So that was our episode on Frank Ocean's Channel Orange. Definitely hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Send us a DM message. Get at us. Also, please subscribe to the Rap Thought Podcast on Apple. Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're going to be doing a lot more dope albums. We're also going to be doing new albums when they come out, and we agreed to do them. So definitely keep checking us out.
And we also are open to doing albums that you guys suggest too. I mean, of course, ours will be slightly biased because Matt and I have a similar taste and we're going to do similar things, but definitely reach out to us, interact with us, give us suggestions. We're always open.
And that's our thoughts on Frank Ocean's Channel Orange.